Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Around the Big Ten podcast. I'm Mark Givler, joined by Chip Minnick. As always, our Around the Big Ten pre-spring looks at every Big Ten team continue as we have three more questions today, three more topics to talk about on one of the blue blood programs. Not historically a Big Ten program, but certainly a blue blood program, and that is the USC Trojans are up today. Chip, this is a program I've been critical of a lot the last year or two. And not so much the program as much as Lincoln Riley. I think this is just a massive upcoming season for them. The buyout is huge, but my goodness, these 500 type of seasons cannot become the norm in LA. And so this is a big off season for Lincoln Riley to get prepared for this upcoming season. I don't think he can, 5, 6, 7 wins. I don't know that's gonna really alienate a lot of people. You're gonna lose what's left on the bandwagon, I think. So they've got to really get it done this year, and they've got some questions this offseason. They got some questions to go in the spring. Let's start with the first topic we're talking about. Do they have the QB situation figured out? They bench Miller Moss. He transfers. How do you feel about their quarterback situation heading into spring?
I'd feel unsettled. I'd feel uncertain, and I'd feel uneasy because for all of Lincoln Riley, for all of the hype and hoopla around him, that quarterback whisperer is kind of, it's kind of taken a shot fairly, in my opinion, over these last few years, in terms of quarterback recruits that either didn't, pan out or decided this isn't for me or whatever it might be. So I realized, like you just said, looking at, USC's quarterback depth chart, I mean, Miller Moss started the majority of the season and then got benched. Jaden Maeva, came in. So I would think he would be the front runner, but that would be the biggest concern is, okay, is he definitely the guy? Because the last thing, when you talked about the idea of Lincoln Riley and the uncertainty around him, the last thing in the world you want is for your starting quarterback to be constantly looking over his shoulder, which I think kind of started to happen with Miller Moss down the stretch in 2024.
This is all sorts of fascinating to me. I think a lot of teams are going to have quarterback competitions this spring, but I don't think a lot of teams are going to have quarterback competitions this spring. And this is one that I think is actually a competition. A lot of names in play here. You've got Husan Longstreet, the true freshman who is, I guess, has been creating a buzz. Lincoln Riley's been talking him up. Would they go that young? Would they risk that? You've got Sam Heward transfers in from Utah. It seems like probably more of a longer shot. And then, pardon me if I mispronounce this. I've gotten pretty good with the Samoan names. I believe it's Ma'iava.
Okay.
The I's sound like E's, and you got the short A, I think is. So I think it's Jaden Ma'iava. But he's a guy who probably has the inside track. Took over for Miller Moss last season. So that's probably the guy who's going to get the first shot at this thing. But nothing about this screams definitive. It feels like this is going to be a legitimate competition, and, may the best man win. They really don't. Isn't this crucial? Yes. Maybe to Lincoln Riley's long-term job security is that he gets this situation correct.
Right. And to your point about for his job security, how likely would you, or how comfortable would you be if you're Lincoln Riley putting your job security perceived to be from the outside, to be precarious, and putting that in the hands of a true freshman? I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, that's as talented as he may be. And again, if he wins the job definitively, all power to him. But I would think for Lincoln Riley, that would be a tremendous leap of faith.
Yeah, it would certainly seem that Jaden Mayava, again, will have the inside track, and to use a baseball term, the tie will go to the runner there, the tie will go to the veteran there. But it has been interesting, kind of watching some press conferences here, talking to some people out there that Longstreet's getting this little bit of buzz around him already through like winter workouts and such. So. We'll see. We'll see how that goes. Again, you bring in a guy like Sam Heward, who's got, a lot of college experience under his belt. Maybe not the most, he's got some playing experience. Got to play quite a bit in 2023. So how does that look? But we'll see. We'll see what happens here. It's clear to me that Lincoln Riley's goal has this offseason with bringing in Heward and just everything he's done to this point through winter workouts and how he's talked about certain guys is he really wants to drive the competition here. He doesn't want to leave this up to a situation where, Mayava's not getting pushed and he's just kind of the de facto starter. It sounds like he's done whatever he can to bring in as much talent into the room as possible to get competition going. And so that tells me this is going to be a legitimate competition. I don't know why. I don't know why you bring in Heward, quite honestly, otherwise. But so it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. But yes, to me, this quarterback decision could dictate his long-term future. Because this is a type of decision that could have a lingering impact. Like if you get this wrong this year, that could bleed into 2026. Mm-hmm. And then you're like into the abyss at that point. I don't like, you can't, this is USC. Like this is not even the school down the road. This is this is a program that, expects to compete for national championships. So they got to get this right to get back into that type of conversation. Boy, is this a roster that had some turnover this winter. Lost a lot of guys to the portal, some very talented players to the portal, but we're also very active in bringing in guys from the portal, spending some money in NIL. And a lot of that comes down to the running back position. Woody Marks off to the NFL. Some transfers out, some transfers in. Chip, who's next up at running back for the Trojans?
Again, this is part of why there's so much uncertainty is that, for a football program so steeped in tradition, especially at the running back position, it just seems puzzling to me that, especially when you talk about the talent that's available to USC, through the high school ranks, that they kind of, and again, I'm kind of dating myself, but just thinking about, the traditional USC running backs that, kind of captivated college football fans for years, that they don't have an abundance of them, and not even going into the distant past, like when Pete Carroll was there as the head coach. I mean, he had obviously, he had Thunder and Lightning, available to him. So I'm not sure what they're going to do. I think that's part of, like you said, the fact that losing Woody Marks, to the NFL, as well as like players via the transfer portal. I'm not sure who's next in line, because I think that's almost as equally important to answer as the quarterback position.
Yeah. I mean, they lose Quentin Joyner
right
to the portal as well. They do go out and get Eli Sanders, who I believe was at New Mexico. I believe that's correct. Someone yell at me in the comments if I'm off on that, but I believe was at New Mexico. So they've got someone coming. They've kind of swapped out via the portal. Like, I just, for a program the caliber of USC to lose the guys that, you lose Kyron Hudson, you lose Manuel Pregnon, you lose Joyner, you lose the Branch brothers. Like, that is so much talent to lose from a top level program. you're supposed to be taking other people's players away from them. You're not supposed to be losing these guys to conference rivals and everything else. So, I know I'm getting a little bit off past just running back here, but that just, it's going to be interesting. Can someone, I'm looking at someone like an Amarian Peterson, who was a redshirt freshman last year. Can he step up? Eli Sanders obviously will be heavily in the mix, but it's just going to be interesting to see kind of how they figure this out. Because again, you lost a lot there with Marks and with Griffin. You're losing. With Joyner, you're losing a lot of production. So that is a key. I'm as curious as everyone else, as curious as you are, Chip, to see kind of where they look to replace that production. Again, I think Eli Sanders was a savvy pickup, but it's going to take more than one because you're losing two good ones. It's going to take more than one. So, and when you're trying to figure out your quarterback situation too, this just feels like another thing that it's like, okay, how many things do you got? We could do this with the receivers. They've lost receivers to the portal. So like, where do you hang your hat? And that's going to be a theme here. But to our last point, they lost a lot of close games last year.
Yes.
A lot of close games. And so if you are glass half full, if you're looking at me and you're telling me how unfair I'm being to Lincoln Riley and how overly critical I'm being of him, that, they could have easily won, 9 or 10 games last year because of all the close games they're into. That's fine. That's, everyone has a right to their opinion, but I think part of coaching is winning those close games. A lot of teams play close games, but it's how you perform down the stretch is a reflection of your coaching staff and the preparedness you have for those situations. And USC wasn't always well prepared for those situations last year. So, Chip, have they figured out how to reverse this, how to fix what's plagued them in the fourth quarters of these Big Ten games that they just could not pull out last year?
They better. Or Lincoln Riley. I mean, I'm not trying to mock the situation. I mean, when you look at what happened to them last year, the fact that, you have to call it like you see it is, like I always go back to that old Bill Parcells line. Like, you are what your record says you are, like you can say like, oh, we were this close and we could have, if this had happened. And it's like, the reality is, for a 5-game stretch from September to October, USC was 1-4. And the teams, now granted, I'm gonna give them, some props at the fact that, okay, like they lost at Michigan, which that was, just a physical game. But the one game that they won, was at home. They lost on the road at Minnesota. They lost at home in overtime to Penn State, which no disgrace there, but it was at home. And then they lost by 1 point to Maryland. So it's like, all right, it seems as though being, like road warriors is something that USC has to figure out within the Big Ten, because maybe, and this is not to imply that teams weren't good in the Pac-12, but like maybe, like going on the road in the Pac-12 was not as physically grueling. I will give the West Coast teams some benefit of the fact that, okay, like the cross-country travel, I'm convinced that certainly is something that has an impact. But guess what? Like the teams that are also, traveling from east to west, like they sometimes have to deal with that as well. So, hey, USC, you've got to become you have to become better physically prepared on both lines of scrimmage, I think, in order to win those close games. The difference between 1-4 and 4-1. We're not talking about Lincoln Riley's job security going into this year.
No, exactly. I think what it comes down to largely is a toughness thing. I think Alex Grinch probably set that program back nearly a decade with his team's defense's lack of toughness. They were better last year.
Yes.
D'Anton Lynn is very well respected. So I think to end this, because I have been critical of USC in this podcast, and obviously over the last couple of years I have been, so it's kind of been a trend. But to end this for me, from my perspective, on kind of a glass half full, is you did show defensive progress last year, both statistically and physically, in terms of your toughness. It got better. It's not where it needs to be if you want to win 10 games in the Big Ten and get to the college football playoff or compete for a Big Ten championship. It's not there yet, but it's moving back in the right direction with D'Anton Lynn. So it wouldn't shock me if they took another step up defensively, which then puts, in my opinion, even, I know I said I was going to finish glass half full, but it puts, in my opinion, even more pressure on, proclaimed offensive guru Lincoln Riley to put a really good offense on the field to help your defense. So that's where I would look if I was looking for an excuse or a reason why USC is going to be a lot better this year. Is they should, under Lynn, have a better defense again this year. They should get back in the right direction, because you can't change a culture overnight in terms of like a defense that was. I mean, you watch those games under Alex Grinch. The tackling, the tackling was so bad. You had guys like making business decisions out there, not wanting to stick their nose in there. It was embarrassing watching them play defense under Alex Grinch. D'Anton Lynn made really impressive strides, I thought, last year. So I like him. I like the direction the defense is trending. They certainly recruited very, very well on the defensive side of the ball, and they continue to. So we'll see. We will see if they can kind of, bring that defense up another notch or two, and then it's on Lincoln Riley to get the offense where it needs to be. But that would be my one thing I think USC fans maybe can hang their hat on, is that the defense is moving in the right direction, and that is ultimately going to keep you in these games. And now you got to figure out how to finish some of these.
Yeah, I mean, I know that we're going to do the schedule analysis after spring, but I just talked about the idea that last year that was kind of that 1-4 stretch, kind of really hampered USC. They've got a tough schedule, similar type thing at the end of September. I mean, and I realize we'll do the schedule analysis later on, but some of the teams, now granted, some of the teams do come to Southern California, but these are physical teams that USC has to be prepared for. So to that point, if they are prepared defensively, now it's going to be up to the offense to carry their end of the bargain.
Yep. So we will see. USC should be interesting this year regardless. They're either going to be a redemption story or a comeback story, or they're going to be the hottest coaching carousel. They're going to be like the what do you call it? The like ground zero of the coaching, the coaching rumor mill.
Right.
Yes. One or the other. So it'll be an interesting team to follow for sure this fall. And we'll see if Lincoln Riley can get them going back in the right direction. But again, we're doing these on all 18 Big Ten teams. It's hilarious to say that, 18 Big Ten.
Yeah, I know.
But yes, we'll be doing these on all the Big Ten teams. We're well past the halfway point now. We have a few big ones coming up, but you can watch all these at youtube.com/@SaturdayGlory, or you can listen to it on your podcast platform of choice. But thanks for watching and listening, and we will see you again here with another one.